Hi everyone, in this video I just want to do a little introduction to what UV unwrapping is. So in the previous video we just modelled our Lego brick and then duplicated it a couple of times. So because these are all similar, what we'll do is we unwrap one and then we can duplicate it nice and easily. So I'm just going to select these ones for now, hit delete, and then we combine those. So we're going to go to mesh and separate. So these are now separate pieces. And then what we'll do is I'm just going to delete all these duplicate parts for now, because we literally can just unwrap one and then duplicate the unwrapping quite easily. So the way to explain what unwrapping is essentially it's you telling the software how you want the materials to be applied to it. If you're used to using something like Fusion 360, you don't need to do it. And for the most part, it kind of looks okay, but there are certain times with more complex shapes where it makes a big difference because you're not like with distorted materials. So the fact that you have UV unwrapping, you need to do it with Maya, you need to do it with Blender, same with like 3ds Max. It's just a much better way of making materials lay the way you want them to lay. So I'll start with the main cube. I'm going to UV and UV editor. And I'm on two screens, so I'm just going to drag over. And you're going to get this shape. And I'm going to drag it to make it a little bit smaller so it shows up there. Okay, so there will be something there automatically, but that is not really much good. So what we're going to do is right click, go to UV shell, hit that, hit delete. Like that. Okay, so what we want to do is I'm going to right click, go to object mode, click on it, go to create, and go to camera based. So essentially what we're going to do now is tell it how we want the materials to lay out. So how would you essentially want like the net of the shape. So I'm going to go to right click and edge. I'm then going to pick a few edges. So I'm going to double click along here. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to double click this edge here and here. So we can cut those off. I'm going to pick one of these edges. So I'm going to double click here. Like that. Because this is quite a simple shape, it's actually quite an easy thing to unwrap, which is why it's quite a nice little introduction. Essentially, it's just I'm going to do all the different surfaces and we'll stitch them together so you can see what it looks like. So I'm going to double click. Sometimes if you've got more complex shapes, annoyingly, double clicking on the edge won't always go all the way across the edge. It just depends on what you've what sort of actions you've been doing while modeling it. So I'm just keep double clicking. I believe that is all of them. Ooh. And then I am going to double click on this one as well. Okay, so then in my UV editor, I'm going to hold down Shift, right click, and go to Cut. And I'm going to go to UV Shell again, select it all, Shift, right click, go to Unfold, and Unfold. And what's happened, if I go to UV Shell and click on each individual one, you'll see essentially it's all the different pieces individually folded out. So we're not finished yet, annoyingly. It's a bit of a tedious job, but when you want models to look really nice, it is quite important. So what we're going to do is go to Edge, I'm going to hover over edges, and you can see where they're supposed to match up. So we're going to stitch this together. So I'm going to right click, go to Cut and Sew, and Stitch Together. And it'll move it into place. Right click, Cut and Sew, Stitch Together. And it'll start to move everything around. Right click, Cut and Sew, Stitch Together. You just slowly build up. Okay, so here I've already stitched two parts together, so you can see the red there and there. So if I right click, Cut and Sew, Stitch Together, I'm going to start to get a bit of distortion there, which I don't want. So I'm going to right click and Z. And then last one I need to do, right click, so stitch together. Okay, so if I zoom out, go to UV shell, click on this, and just E to rotate it and load out, you see that essentially it looks like the net of my object. So that's fine for UV unwrapping for this particular shape. So what if I turn on, where has it gone? There it is. Okay, so if I turn on this checker map, you'll see what will happen is on the object on the left hand side, it shows this little checker map, and what you're after is nice even squares, which we've got there, no problem. So this works in terms of like trying to help make things be of the right scale, because we've got multiple parts. You want to make sure that all the different parts have got squares that are the same size. So go to UV shell, I'm going to just move this up out of the way, because we're then going to go to object, click on this one, UV shell, select it, delete, go to object, I'm just going to control 1 just to isolate, go to create and camera based, and then do the same thing here. In fact, this one's going to be super easy because it's just completely hollow, so all I'm going to do for this one is just double click an edge there, and I'm going to go right click while holding on shift, go to cut, UV, hold that out, right click while holding on shift, unfold, unfold, and that's unfolded that. So then if I control 1 to bring that back, go to object, select both, and you see now that the squares are different sizes. Okay, so this is where we've got to make sure they're the same size and scale. So that's where we then have to right click, hit down R, to scale, drag up and get them to be the same size. And E to rotate to make sure it's looking right. Once we're happy with that, and move that up, because then what we can do is now we can duplicate that again. So I'm going to go Control D, W to move, select them both, Control D, W to move, select them both, Control D, W to move. So we've now got all our parts again. And if I go back into the UV editor and if I select all of these, they are now all already unwrapped. But what I will need to do is they'll be on top of each other, so I just need to move them apart. One more. That should be it. Yes. Okay. So those are all unwrapped, which is why it's always good to have like duplicate parts, and then we can do the same thing for this thing at the bottom. Go to object. Let's just Control 1 to isolate, UV, and delete. Go to create and camera based. And we're going to go to right click and edge. Let's double click on this edge and this edge. And then let's double click that edge, and that should take it all the way around, hopefully. Yes. So I'm going to hold down shift, right click, cut, go back to UV shell, select, hold down shift, right click, unfold, go to W, E to rotate so we can straighten them out. So we can see these are slightly different. Because one is the inside and one's the outside. So then let's Control 1 to unisolate everything. Let's select all of our objects. Okay, so now we've got them all, and grab those UV shells that we've just done, move them so they're not overlapping, because we don't want UV shells to overlap. Again, see the square size, we want them to be similar size, so hit R to scale, make it bigger. So about there. And like we did with the other square, or the other like bobbly bits, we go Control D to duplicate, bring that into position. Again, just making sure everything is in line with where it needs to be. And then let's just select all of them. And again, these will be duplicated, so let's W and move, so we've got 2 of them. So that then is this object unwrapped. So now when we start to add materials, it's all going to sit nice and evenly. We know all the squares are similar sizes, so it's going to look a lot better. So that is a basic introduction to UV unwrapping. Hopefully you found that useful. Any questions, just email me at designwithsimon@outlook.com.